Good morning. Thanks for having me.
All right, so you're on a busy kind of tour of the province. Tell us about some of the stops you've made so far, and why is this a good time to tour the province?
Well, it's a chilly time to tour the province, that's for sure, but we finally have winter. Well, I've really been, as we've talked about before, really been spending a lot of my time on the road since June. But with the new year, it really feels important to get out to as many communities as I can and just hear from people what's going on, what their challenges are, what their hopes are, how they feel about the way things are going. So I was in Truro and Stewiacke and, other parts of Colchester. And then on Monday, we spent the day in Preston, which was great. So we were all across that riding. Yesterday, I was down in the valley in Middleton talking to folks about healthcare. And then we'll be heading to the South Shore in another, couple of weeks, and then finish the month out in Cape Breton. So it's been great to get across the province. And, I think that's really, as elected officials, all of us, but particularly as leader of a party, that's my main job, is to understand the experience of Nova Scotians and what they need.
All right. So what are some of the primary things that you're hearing?
Well, I think that we are hearing, of course, challenges around healthcare. So yesterday when I was in Middleton, there was a group of just concerned community members from up and down that stretch of the 101 and the old road, the one there, who are deeply concerned about really losing the last semi-functional emergency department between Kentville and Yarmouth. We talk a lot about challenges in the ER in the last few weeks, and it's not just challenges in the ER, it's challenges when you can't get to an emergency room. And so, I think there's a real crying need for people to have access to healthcare in their own communities. And, these folks were braving some serious weather to get their message heard. So we're hearing about healthcare. Of course, we're hearing about primary care in healthcare. People, they want a family doctor, but they just want access to a doctor's office that has their file, that knows them, and that they can see the person they need to see. So we've talked about collaborative care before. Increasingly, that's what people are asking for. We just want to know that someone is looking after us. And then, of course, we're hearing about the cost of living. With January comes all of the bills from December. And, with temperatures like this, people are starting to run through heating oil and electricity. And of course, still find ourselves in a challenging situation with inflation and the cost of living. And so people are struggling and looking for help. And then, the other thing that we're hearing about, and I heard a lot about, is growth and how to manage growth. And that's not disconnected from the healthcare and other social services conversations. So we're still accepting and welcoming a lot of people in Nova Scotia every month, which is great. That's a huge linchpin of the Houston government's platform and approach, but we don't have the services to accommodate them. And so we don't have the doctors, we don't have the schools, and we certainly don't have the housing. And so, we heard in some communities, they say, well, our population has gone up 22%, but our housing stock certainly hasn't expanded to meet that need. And so prices skyrocket, people get pushed out of the community, and there are huge challenges for leaders in that community and, of course, for people just trying to find a place to live. So that's a little snapshot, I'd say, Todd. But, on this day when, we're finally sort of heading into a deep freeze that you were talking about in the winter, here in HRM, now that I'm back, I think people are talking about housing.
Okay, back to the immigration. Are you suggesting that we should be pumping the brakes on our immigration targets here?
No, I'm suggesting that we should be paying as much attention to making sure that the people who come here have housing, health care, and the services they need as we are to increasing our tax base. So if we want to welcome people, then we need to actually welcome people. And welcoming people means making sure that they have what they need. And I think all too often people are arriving and finding out that they in fact don't have a lot of what they need.
Okay, well, that's not going to change in the short term, right? The housing situation and all of these situations that you talked about, that's not changing anytime soon. So if that's good, so that's
about priorities, right? I mean, no, it's not going to change overnight, of course, but how do you want to, where does the government want to spend its money? How do you want to prioritize who you're taking care of? A year ago, the government gave $22 million to a developer to, build townhouses in my district. That $22 million could have been added on to the, rapid housing fund from the federal government and could build affordable units that people can live in now. It's all choices. So, no, it's not going to happen overnight. But, yes, there is a lot of room for improvement, and there are certainly things that could be done.
Okay, so back to what's going on in Middleton, and I understand that the people in the community, the fear is real, and I would share that same fear if I lived in that area for sure. But again, it's about human resources in many cases. It's about having the people to fill these roles, and we know that this challenge isn't going away. Again, I use the term overnight, but it's not going to change overnight. So what are the expectations, I guess, from government in the short term? Because I know that people look to government to fix things, but maybe there's not a fix right now for this.
Well, what I've heard actually, Todd, in a lot of communities, and it's not just Middleton, we heard the same thing in Musquodoboit and other communities we've been in across the province from people is, look, we understand the staffing challenges. And in communities like that, everyone knows everyone. So someone's sister is a nurse and someone's uncle is a cleaner. Like, everyone knows what the situation is. Nobody, is sort of pie-eyed about that. But I think what a lot of people have said is, why can't we go back to a model where, okay, if we can't have a doctor and a full slate of nurses, why can't we have a paramedic and a nurse practitioner and a nurse who at least keep this site open so that we have somewhere to go if we need healthcare in our community? The mobile clinics are fine, but they're sporadic and you can't count on them. It's the same with virtual care. You can't always get an appointment. So people want a place they know they can go. Ideally, that place would be a fully staffed emergency room. But as you say, we have massive, human resources issues. Everyone understands that. But, the NDP government pioneered collaborative emergency centers. And, there's a model of that where maybe you have access to a physician, but there's not always a physician on site. We have models like that. And so the question is how to use our resources wisely and make sure that communities across this province have a place to go if they are, have urgent need of a healthcare. And many, many communities right now don't have that place to go.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a real challenge, but again, part of the challenges of all of this, of course, is that we're not unique here in Nova Scotia. I think all provinces are experiencing the same type of thing. And when it comes to recruitment of healthcare workers, we heard from the head of the Nurses Association in Canada was on the show this week, and he said, look, we can poach from other provinces, but that's not going to solve the problem until you retain and fix the situation. So that's fundamentally important here, right?
Absolutely. And I agree with that. And one thing that we're really not talking about enough, Todd, is retention. Yeah. So, we need more nurses. Everyone understands that. But we are also losing nurses out of the public system, I think, daily, based on what I'm hearing. I mean, I don't have numbers to back that up right now, but based on my conversations with hospital staff and nurses, people are leaving because it is such a stressful environment. And Janet Hazelton would say the same thing, the head of the nurses union. And so I think one of the things we really need to pay attention to is how do we retain the workforce we have? Because you're right, we don't want to poach from other places, and we also don't want to lose our nurses to the private system. So we see this all the time. I just spoke to someone the other day who said, yeah, my sister's a nurse. She really stuck it out for a long time. And then she just decided to go be a travel nurse, not so much because of the money, but because the quality of life was better. That shouldn't be the case. We should be able to offer an appropriate quality of life to what are right now some of our most valuable and precious employees. It should be all hands on deck to keep those folks employed and keep them as happy as possible so that they continue to perform the vital service that they do.
Claudia, I appreciate your time as always. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Claudia Chender, leader of the NDP. We'll take a break.